The drama surrounding Cleveland right now feels heavier than a normal quarterback controversy. This doesn't feel like a young player slowly earning trust or a coaching staff carefully managing development. It feels like a story that slipped out of someone's control. Because when Shadur Sanders finally stepped onto the field and immediately looked like he belonged, it didn't just change the scoreboard, it changed the narrative. And when narratives change this fast, it usually means pressure is building somewhere behind the scenes. For months, fans were told to be patient. They were told this was about timing, about development, about protecting a young quarterback from being rushed. Every delay was framed as discipline. Every decision was labeled a football decision, as if that phrase alone erased all doubt. But once Shadur finally got his chance, that entire structure started to wobble. He didn't look overwhelmed. He didn't play like someone still figuring out NFL speed. He looked prepared, decisive, calm in moments where rookies usually panic. And in that moment, the question quietly stopped being whether Shadur could play. It became why he hadn't been playing sooner. That question is dangerous for an organization because it forces accountability. It forces people to retrace steps. It forces uncomfortable conversations about who made which call and why. And suddenly, the spotlight shifted away from the quarterback and straight toward the people who delayed him. That's when reports started sounding different. Not official statements, not press conferences, but the kind of layered language that usually signals tension. Words like hands tied, organizational decisions, above his pay grade. Phrases that don't accuse anyone directly, but clearly suggest that something wasn't as simple as it looked. At the center of that storm is Kevin Stefanski, a two-time Coach of the Year, a respected play caller, someone fans assumed had full control over football decisions. But as Shadur's success began exposing cracks in the old explanations, that assumption started to feel shaky. Because if Stefanski truly believed Shadur gave the Browns the best chance to win, then the delay becomes hard to justify. And if he didn't believe that, then the results are now making that judgment look questionable. Either way, the situation puts him in an impossible position. What complicates everything is the growing sense that Stefanski may not have had the authority people thought he did. Around the league, speculation has been building that quarterback decisions in Cleveland weren't purely his call. That front office priorities, draft optics, and long-term messaging played a bigger role than performance alone. If that's true, it explains a lot. It explains why a quarterback who reportedly showed well in practice and preseason still waited. It explains the mixed messaging. It explains why the narrative now feels defensive instead of confident. Because once Shadur started delivering, the conversation changed fast. The same voices that questioned his readiness began emphasizing development. Skepticism softened into praise. Explanations grew longer, more careful. Suddenly, we heard about extra film sessions, early mornings, rapid growth behind the scenes. And while those things may very well be true, the timing raised eyebrows. None of it seemed to matter publicly until production made it impossible to ignore. That's why fans are uneasy. Not because opinions evolve, but because the evolution felt reactive. When a player succeeds fast and expected, the story doesn't just adjust, it scrambles. And scrambling often looks like revision. What was once framed as hesitation becomes patience. What was once doubt becomes process. And what was once skepticism becomes foresight. The problem is that fans remember the earlier tone. They remember the certainty with which Shadur was labeled not ready. And they notice how quickly that certainty vanished once the results arrived. This is where the idea of a fall guy starts to surface. Not officially, not loudly, but subtly. Because when an organization looks back and realizes a delay may have cost momentum or credibility, someone usually absorbs that weight. Coaches are often the easiest target. They're visible. They speak publicly. They stand on the sideline. And if Stefanski truly didn't have full control, then he's now carrying criticism for decisions he may not have fully owned. That creates frustration. It creates resentment. And sometimes it creates an exit plan. Reports suggesting Stefanski may want to make more sense through that lens. Not as an emotional reaction, but as a professional calculation. No coach wants to stay in a situation where success exposes internal conflict instead of resolving it. Because winning is supposed to simplify things. Instead, Shatter's success complicated everything. It forced clarity where there had been ambiguity. It forced accountability where there had been cover. Meanwhile, Shatter himself hasn't played into any of it. No public complaints. No victory laps. No subtle shots. He's let the performances speak. And that restraint has only amplified the contrast. Because while narratives shift around him, his approach hasn't changed. The confidence that once made people uncomfortable now looks like composure. The presence that was once questioned now looks like leadership. Nothing about Shatter changed. Only the results did. That's what makes this moment bigger than a hot streak. Once a young quarterback proves he can command an offense and handle pressure, the conversation changes permanently. Development stops being theoretical. It becomes visible. And visibility creates leverage. Shatter is no longer a project. He's a standard. And standards force alignment. They demand protection, commitment, and clarity. They don't tolerate indecision for long. That's why the tension in Cleveland feels real. When a rookie forces answers too quickly, it exposes who is confident and who is cautious. It reveals where power actually sits. And in a league built on hierarchy, that can be deeply uncomfortable. Every future decision now gets judged through one lens. Does it help the quarterback or protect someone else? That's the reckoning Shatter's emergence has created. The irony is that this didn't have to be dramatic. If the messaging had been consistent, if the explanations had matched the results, if the organization had owned uncertainty instead of masking it. But instead, fans watch the story get rewritten in real time. And when that happens, trust erodes. Not because mistakes were made, but because the response to success felt late. What's undeniable now is this. Shadur Sanders didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for a perfect alignment. He stepped into uncertainty and produced clarity. And players who do that force organizations to show their hand. You either move forward with them or you get exposed trying to slow them down. That's why this moment matters beyond Cleveland. Around the league, people are watching how this unfolds. Who stays, who shifts, who quietly exits once excuses stop working. Because franchises don't fail from lack of talent. They fail from mismanaging it. Shatter is no longer a debate. He's no longer projection. He's no longer a storyline waiting for confirmation. He is the confirmation. And from here on out, every decision in Cleveland will be measured against one simple question. Was this about football or was it about control? And now it's your turn. Do you think the Browns handled Shadur Sanders the right way? Or did his success expose deeper issues inside the organization? Was this patience, miscalculation, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this into the stories behind the headlines, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.